But again, I'm Wes Mitchell, Gamecock Central. He's Chris Clark. South Carolina landing a commitment today from a high 3-star linebacker, Bryce Steele, who announced on Twitter with a video with Rivals that he chose the Gamecocks over really a big list of offers, but North Carolina and Texas were his other 2 finalists. Had early offers from Ohio State, Penn State, some schools like that. And I think, Chris, a nice pickup for South Carolina. They continue to try to add athleticism to their linebacking room. And we'll get into a little bit later on as we go into more detail on him, why he's a 3-star guy, both from a positive standpoint and why he's maybe only a 3-star guy and not a 4-star guy right now, because there are some things that have held his ranking back, but stuff out of his control, basically. But Chris, South Carolina, second straight commit for Kyle Krantz. What did you think of the pickup today?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to like about Bryce, and I think you hit it when you talked about his athleticism. This is a kid that, Wes, you probably remember we were standing there and saw him at South Carolina's camp, last summer. So, getting close to a year ago. And, he's a big physical presence, when you look at him at 6'1", 6'2", 195. I know he's gained some weight now to where he's in the 205, 210 pound range. And certainly he can pack on a lot more, but watching him move around in camp, he was really impressive. And that's what really stood out to me, was just watching him move. And you sort of got the impression of, is this a big safety or is this an outside linebacker type? And really watching him, I thought he could be either, but they worked him out as a linebacker, and Coleman Hutzler was still on staff and helped get things started there for the Gamecocks. And then, as time went on, you can tell that, his skill set and his growth pattern is really making him into an inside linebacker all the way. And that's where South Carolina's recruited him. But, the size is there. The movement ability is there. I'll be honest, Wes, when I was watching him at camp last summer and just looking at a lot of the competition, the schools that it offered, and factoring in that even though he's from North Carolina, from Raleigh, playing up in Virginia, what I sort of wondered was, is this a guy South Carolina is going to be able to long-term keep traction with? I'll be honest. And it was pretty evident they had established some at that point in the summer. And then they really just kept things going. The staff stuck with him. They recruited him really, really consistently. Will Muschamp, Kyle Krantz, Hutzler, until he left the staff for Texas, and all that's paid off. So really good pickup from an athletic standpoint for them, and a guy with a lot of upside.
Yeah, and someone I think we're seeing, Chris, they're continuing to be able to successfully recruit, even though everything is shut down right now as far as in-person visits. We had no idea how this was really going to play out as far as its effect on recruiting. We've seen South Carolina now actually be able to land a number of commitments, had a decommitment as well. Recruiting itself, because of the way that, coaches can talk over Twitter and FaceTime and over the phone and all these different things. And kids a lot of them had already taken junior day visits. It's just rolled right along. I think in the case of Bryce, I think Texas was in the final 3, just sort of as an ode to a dream school of his, a place he really, I think, grew up liking from a logo standpoint, and like the fact that it's Texas and stuff like that. I think in a real world standpoint, I don't get the impression he maybe wanted to get that far away from home when you look at the fact that his other 2 finalists were South Carolina and North Carolina. He is a Virginia kid right now, but he's actually from Raleigh. So the fact that it was the 2 Carolina schools, I think, says something about where his head was at in this process. But, I think recruiting has rolled right along, man. And you see another win for Kyle Krantz, who was the key recruiter with Nick Barrett, or one of the key recruiters with Nick Barrett as well. But just a nice pickup for South Carolina. And someone, I think, if we can talk big picture for a second, you look at the linebacking group, there may not be that maybe high 4-star guy that they've been able to get in the secondary, like a J.C. Horn or a Jamie Robinson, or even a 5-star guy like they've gotten stacking Zach Pickens, with Jordan Burks this past year. But I I think you look at how they've evaluated that position, and a couple of years ago there were a lot of concerns about linebacker, and they didn't play all that great. But now you start to look at the emergence of Ernest Jones. You look at Sherrod Green, who came into his own last year. You look at Jamar Brown as a freshman who played some, and then bringing in a guy like Mo Kaba this past season, and now you stack Bryce Steele on top of that. I think you can sort of see the direction they're going. They want athleticism. I don't think you're going to see any Jasper Brinkley type linebackers anytime soon. I think this is the direction. We've seen it really the last, 4, 5, 6, even maybe longer years where you're looking for these athletic linebacker types that can play in space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with, really that big linebacker is going to be, Rosendo Lewis, and it's sort of gone away from that a little bit. And certainly he's a guy that can factor in and play some this season. But, some of the guys you mentioned, I mean, Ernest Jones is more of a true Mike, but he moves pretty well. But you look at some of the other guys they've taken, Kaba, he's a 6'3" guy with a frame that isn't as developed as it will be. But he really can move. He's fast. He's physical. He's a striker. Jamar Brown is a guy who was, when he was brought in, he was a coverage guy. He ran 4.6 at Carolina's camp the summer that he was being recruited. He held up really well in coverage. He can give you some pass rush, like some blitz off the edge. You look at Gilbert Edmond that they brought in this last class, a late flip from South Florida, and he was a pass rusher, an edge presence type in high school that they really want to take a look at the will position, because he's a guy with length that can really run. And so, when you look at Bryce Steele, again, this is a guy that when he was first coming out, you think of him as maybe a hybrid type player. Maybe he can play a big safety. Maybe he can play a linebacker, be a hybrid type. So he fits that bill again, length, physically impressive, can run, can cover, can come down and play in the box physically and strike you. And so there's a lot to like from that standpoint. I was just going back while you're talking, Wes, and looking at some of the material that we wrote last summer, and we had previewed that he was going to be in camp, and then he turned in a really good performance, I remember. And Will Muschamp was talking to him. Kyle Krantz did a good job last summer of getting some guys in from that Virginia area, with Steele being one of them. And, he had a lot of other summer camps, Penn State and Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan, whether it's camps or visits that he went and did last year or had planned. And so a lot of schools are after him at that time. And so he was able to go and, again, didn't play, last season, but Carolina stuck with him. And I think that really paid off, and they're getting themselves a high upside player now.
Yeah. The fact that he did have a medical issue, and, we're not going to go into detail into all that. I don't think that's been really publicly talked about exactly what that was, but he had a medical issue, forced him out for his junior year. That affected his recruitment in a big way, I think. But when you look at it, the schools that stayed with him, I think that showed him maybe sort of the other side of the recruiting process and the business side. And, it puts South Carolina in a position where they've landed a kid that may be a high 3-star guy right now based on a lot of that upside and those camp performances, but probably had, a real chance if the junior season if he could have played it and it could have matched his, his preseason junior year where he was going to these camps and impressing. I was talking to Adam Friedman, Rivals, regional analyst. He said that he was very impressive, to him at the Rivals camps. And then we saw him at South Carolina's camps. This is a guy I think is probably a 4-star type player, or at least in that conversation. And if he has a big senior year now, whenever that may be, he's going to be in a situation where he can move up the rankings. Let's try to hit a few of his clips here. Let's see that right now and let y'all see what type of player. And again, as we sort of watch the clips here, this is sophomore film. So, Chris, you kind of have to project a little bit, but I think you can already see he's a guy that, even though he was a safety, I think in some of their looks, he was already playing in the box a lot, plays sort of some nickel out on the edge where he's playing over a slot receiver, as you see here. some Sam linebacker sort of, but was all, even though he was a safety, he was always, I think, more of your strong safety type, a guy that's comfortable coming up and hitting. And, I think you have to have that in today's world. You have to have guys that you can use from a versatile standpoint and let them play in space. And we've seen South Carolina, at least last year and against a lot of their opponents, actually reverse course and go back to a little bit more 4-3 than we saw them use early on, since Muschamp and T-Rob arrived at South Carolina. And I think having a guy like this maybe lets you sort of do a little bit of that and feel comfortable, where you're not having some linebackers based on matchups and down and distance and stuff like that, you have to take off the field. But I think as you're watching him here, you really will see that I think he's a guy that can be like that 3-down type linebacker, Chris.
Yeah, he really checks all the boxes that you look for, whether he's, a Sam or a Will type. It's probably where he fits best at South Carolina, just looking at their scheme and, the length, he's 6'1", 6'2", but he's plenty long enough to play the position. He's definitely willing to come up and run support. He can give you some blitz and edge presence off the edge. You watch him on tape, and the thing you can see about him is he moves around really well. He's got a good first step off the edge. He's got some twitch to him. He can turn and run. He can sink and come off, in zone coverage and go find the football and go chase it down. And those are the things you look for. I mean, it's difficult to play linebacker nowadays because, it's always been, any position in football is difficult, especially, linebacker is one of those that's, you're delivering blows and you're taking on offensive linemen who are, way big, double your size or way bigger than you. And so, playing linebacker nowadays is a little bit different at times because it's a space game, and people are going to be looking for mismatches. You're going to try to get slot guys against you. You're going to try to pair you with a running back and get you walled off and try to, run you off and have you chasing a guy. And that's tough. So what you want to have is a guy like Steele, who's physical enough to be able to hold up in the box and on the edge, go make tackles for you in the run game, but he can also match up, like this on a wheel route. Obviously, he's going to be facing against some elite running backs in the SEC, but athletically, he's got the traits that you look for there and a good canvas for the staff to work with. Yeah,
I want to this player right here in particular caught my attention, Chris, because you see, he's lined up way out here. This is traditionally, this is not where you're going to have a linebacker lined up as far as the amount of space he's having to cover. Looks like, I guess he's a safety or a nickel back as far as their scheme goes in this particular play. And they've got a single high safety with some man coverage. But if you look, this play is very specifically designed from an offensive standpoint to get this slot receiver open on the wheel route, because number 7 for this offense is actually trying to pick off Steele, as you'll see right here. And he does a good job of sort of avoiding that and actually having the athleticism to carry down the field with this receiver and then make a play on the ball. So that play just caught my attention. A lot of those initial plays we saw, you see him get off a block here and make a tackle short of the goal line. A lot of these plays, he is playing in space and rushing off the edge. And, that's something, like you said, where I think as a Will or a Sam is where he fits in South Carolina's scheme. But it is a very versatile scheme that South Carolina runs. And here you see him back in space again, coming up, taking away the flat receiver. And then you see the speed and the hustle with him chasing somebody down from 20 yards or so. But I think when you look at him, man, you like everything you see on the film. And this is a guy that here you see him changing direction, getting back to the football and making a play on it. Not many linebackers really have not even the athleticism, but just the experience playing in space like it appears that he does. So I think his safety background probably gives him a leg up over maybe some other guys who are used to just playing in the box.
Yeah, for sure. He's got that sort of dual, not even dual, really sort of 3 skill sets really that are above average. When you look at his ability to chase the ball and stop the run, edge presence, whether it's blitz or being able to affect the quarterback off the edge, and then in coverage, those are all things that he's adept at, whether it's breaking on the ball in zone and helping limit a guy to a short gain or turning and running with somebody in like a running back in man coverage. Those are all things that he can do from an athletic standpoint. A guy, when you get to college, it becomes more difficult because the coaching and the scheming and the athleticism that you go against a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times is better than what you saw in high school. The athleticism is always better than what you see in high school. And so that becomes more difficult, but the guys who excel are typically the ones who have a high football IQ and are athletic enough to get it and are coached well to do it. And so I think all those boxes really are getting checked with Bryce Steele. And, he's someone that I think athletically can play early for you on special teams, or maybe even pull down some snaps at linebacker, just depending on how quickly he picks everything up.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So like we said, we're going to make this one pretty short, but Chris, we've got a ton of content on Gamecock Central right now, and we've actually got the video of Bryce Steele committing, which was produced by Rivals. We've got an Inside the Commitment, which is something we do for pretty much all the commitments, as long as we have some good stuff to pass along. We've got him explaining why he committed to the Gamecocks, and we've got a special deal going on as well. So, Chris, you want to tell everybody about the special deal we have going on at Gamecock Central?
Yeah, we just launched today. We've got a free trial, and it's not 30 or 60 days. It's until August. So you can go to GamecockCentral.com. It's on our front page, or anywhere that you go to sign up for a subscription to our website. You can pick a monthly or annual plan, either one. But you can type in the promo code Gamecocks 2020. You can see there on Wes's screen, he's sharing there. That's what the banner looks like. So Gamecocks 2020. You go to that, make sure the code takes. That will get you a free trial until August 1st of this year. So all of our insider content, any story you see on GamecockCentral.com, access to the Insiders Forum, which is our exclusive members-only forum for discussion. And we drop news and scoop there all the time. If you want to ask me a question, ask Wes or Colin Taylor a question, we're there all the time. You can ask us at any time. Get access to everything. It's completely free. You don't get charged until after the promo ends. And we think that if you jump in, odds are you want to stick around. We think we become friends, and you get all our content all the time. So it's a great deal. Gamecocks 2020 is the promo code.
All right, good stuff, Chris. As always, hopefully everybody enjoyed our little quick impromptu live chat here. Like I said, we're going to continue to do these. Subscribe to us. Hit if you're watching this now, hit the subscribe button so that you'll get an alert when we go live. And also find us on Facebook, which you can do that by just going to facebook.com/GamecockCentral, and or you can search for, I believe it's South Carolina Gamecocks on Gamecock Central is what it is on Facebook. Of course, on Twitter, it's just at Gamecock Central. But what we'll continue to do is we'll sort of go back and forth on which platform we go live on. And then after the fact, we'll post the video directly on whichever one we're not live on. So again, for Chris Clark, I'm Wes Mitchell. If you're not a member, if you're not a subscriber, check out that code. It's Gamecocks 2020. You'll get a free trial until August. We also have another code, Gamecocks. If that's more up your alley, you can get 50% off of an annual subscription. So it's $49.95 instead of $99.95. Either way, we'd love to see you on the Insiders Forum and being able to check out all of our Gamecock Central premium content. You have a great day. And of course, we will see y'all soon, either on YouTube, Facebook, or directly on GamecockCentral.com.